Oh, well, it's certainly cold this week, isn't it? Well, there's not much going on. No one's working this week, are they? If you are, you're a fool. In England anyway. So I thought I'd just do this little video, just fill a void up. There's not much going on on social media, is there, bricklaying wise, really? No one's putting any videos up, not on YouTube anyway. So I thought I'd do this video. It's about Bricklayers Tools, sort of in the 1930s to the 1950s. All you people in America watching this, I mean, the tools we use over in the UK are pretty much similar to what you use, but the method's completely different. So it doesn't relate to how you work in America and Canada. Australia are pretty much the same as us, similar methods. So I thought I'd choose this period because there was a big transition in the way we worked between these times. Up to World War II, and I'm going to have to correct myself in a minute, but let me finish. Up to World War II, most of the properties built in the UK were 9-inch solid brickwork in lime mortar. And then we come into World War II, and then after World War II, the cavity wall system was used with sand and cement. But that's not strictly true, so I've got to try and generalise. There was a live yesterday on Alder Trail. I just happened to be listening, and someone asked him when cavity walls were first used, or when they start using them in the UK, and he sort of said like 1930s, and he was right. But I was on there, he said, Andy, and I said, well, I just told you, but that's because I'm doing this video. So before, I want to bore you, but cavity walls were used in the UK at the end of the 19th century, but there wasn't a lot of them, and they were used in areas of high exposure near the sea and that, to stop penetrating damp. So you had the outside wall, then a small cavity, and then in the cavity at the bottom you had like a gully, so any water collected there and run out. It wasn't for thermal value at all. And then there was a few just built all around, but there was a lot in the 1920s. I mean, it's predominantly solid 9-inch, but in the northwest of England, in Lancashire, and there was quite a few built there all through the 1920s. In London and the home counties, which I've done all my house building, is I wasn't aware of this till I researched it, to be quite honest. It didn't happen, and the reason why it didn't happen is the 1923 building control bylaws in London stated if you wanted to build a cavity a wall in cavity wall, the inside skin had to be 9 inches, then the cavity, then a 4.5-inch skin on the outside. So that's a third more work and a third more material, so it never got adopted. It was too expensive. Builders are not going to do that unless a client specifically asks for it and wants to pay for it. It's going to happen. So that's the reason why I picked this period. I don't think there's anything else I can say much on that. Yeah, so let's get on with it. I've just added, I mean, this is what I cart about, metal detectors for metal detecting, not for work, but and half of my stuff is not in here. I mean, there's no mixer, no wheelbarrow, the block cutter's not in here, and this is what, like, on a small job in Bricklayer, the profiles on there. I had a bigger van before, and it's more junk. In the 30s up to the 50s, what we're talking about, people didn't work like that. Bricklayers work for builders. So if you wanted a job done, just a wall built, you wouldn't go to a bricklayer. You might do if you knew one, but you generally go to a builder, and then the builder would come along and then he'd send his bricklayer along to do the work. Same as house builders. There wasn't many massive house builders, like national house builders like we have now. There wasn't some of the big blocks of flats, but there was a lot of small builders who built one-off houses, blocks of 3 or 4 and that. You see them down these streets, didn't you? Houses built in the 30s. You'll see about 6 all the same, and then they'll change because there's another builder built them, a slightly different architect and that. So yeah, right, let's start. First thing what a bricklayer would have is a bag to put his tools in, and this is an original army kit bag, and it actually belonged to a friend of mine who recently passed away. His name's on there, Johnny Payne, 94 Bridge End Road, Walthamstow. And I went to his funeral last week actually. Oh, I've dropped it. There's his old funeral card there. Lovely bloke. He actually was in the RAF, and I thought all their stuff, all their webbing and that was blue, but maybe it was, maybe he just got this from somewhere else. But he gave me this a while back. Now there was an abundance of these after World War II, and after that, because people were doing national service, they got given one of them when they came out, and that was the norm. People used to carry their fishing gear in it, their sandwiches, your tools, whatever job you done. That was it. That was hard wearing. They done the job. Prior to World War II, I'm not really sure whether these were about and what people carried their tools in. We need a bricklayer who's 100 years old to watch this and give us a bit of information. Right, I'm going to try and do this holding the camera. It's a bit awkward. Some of it I won't be able to. Right, the first thing, or the second thing, we've done the first thing, bricklayer, would be have his trowel. That's 11-inch WHS, standard equipment really. There was many other makes, most of them made in Sheffield, a few in Birmingham, Sheffield steel. Now this is what he'd be using for his face work, and they'd wear them down. They took some wearing down, and if you look at this one, this is a Tyzek, I think. It's an old one as well, but I mean that would have been maybe 11 inches, and that's worn down to, well look, we know a brick's 9 inches, so what's that, that's 7 inches or something, 8 inches maybe. And they'd wear them down to that kind of size. But what they would do, that after the trowel they're using, you know, the most starts wearing down a bit, they'd buy a brand new one. And here's a brand new one there, WHS. And they'd just use it every now and again, if they're doing a bit of rough work, just to break it in. That's what they used to call it, break the trowel in. So when eventually the trowel got too small to use, they wouldn't go straight into using a new trowel. It would be one that's been broken in. Does it really matter? I don't know, but it's what a lot of boys used to do. So yeah, the trowels, they used to make them, so that's 11-inch. They made them, I've read that they made them up to 14-inch, but I've not seen that in the catalogue. I've only seen them made to 13-inch, and I've never seen one. They probably don't exist, because to find one in new condition, you know, from them dates is going to be very unlikely. So anything 13-inch would have been worn down if you find them on eBay or whatever. Right, measuring tools. Right, next, measuring equipment. Box rule, that's all they use. 3-foot rule, wooden rule. I don't know when the first retractable tape measure was made. Well, I do, I can't remember, but it was in the 19th century. It was a long time ago, but they weren't very well. They're not very reliable now, are they? Not for bricklayers. They get covered in shit and that, and they just don't work. Yeah, just a wooden rule. I actually still use one. Got to use the Continental one. I've got one here. Look, 2 metre rule. You know, that's all you need. They don't get covered in mess and that. Getting stuck. I've always got one in my pocket. It's handy. Retractable tape. This is what you had in them days, and they weren't really suited. This is a Raybone actually. You know, but as you can see, they're not man enough for bricklaying. I suppose they're all right keeping your pocket and that, but once the dirt gets in them and that, they've had it. But yeah, they were about. And this one here is an old iconic one, and it's an original. Every house had one of these in. It's something you just kept in the drawers, some of the little red dot on them, and they're still made now. Probably in China, but you know, you do see them, just cheap and cheerful. But you know, some they may have kept them in their pocket, but it was the box rule what was used most of the time. Right, we've got the chisels. Hammers and chisels. Hammers and chisels. Right, scutching hammer with a comb chisel on it. That's for trimming bricks, arches and what have you, and a brick hammer. That's what they used to use. What make this one is? Tyzac. Braids, Nash and Tyzac. Oh, that is an old one. Gilt-edged tools. Yeah, it's quite rare, that one, but it's not had a lot of use either. But yeah, you'd have one of them. £2 club hammer. Get them heavier depending what work you're going to do with it. And a 4-inch bolster for cutting your bricks with. Some people might have kept a 2-inch one as well. These handles are made from hickory, and in the summer what you do, you have a wedge in there. This has been bodged up a little bit, that one, to open it up to keep the head on. And in the summer this wood would shrink a little bit, and the trick was you just put it in a bucket of water for an hour or so and it would swell up again, and it'll be fine. It would be fine. Let's get back to measuring. I forgot about that. Blimey. Right, you had the long tape for setting out. This one, I don't know how old it is, it's old. This company made this, started in 1891. Trying to think, I looked it up and I can't think what make it is now. I think it's a Raybone treble. Anyway, cotton. They made of cotton, and they didn't actually stretch that much. Popular belief says they did. Feet and inches, 33 feet. There's a reason why it's 33 feet, and I'll tell you in a minute. And they cut to 66 feet, a bigger one, not 100 feet. Yeah, treble England. And on the back of it, it's in links, which is another form of measurement. Now, if you was measuring a big area with your 66-foot tape, they may well stretch a little bit. So what we used to measure with was a chain, and it was a long length of chain. Now, chain's not really going to stretch. I've got to check this, I can't remember exactly the measurements. So one chain, yeah, was 66 feet, so this is half a chain, and that's why it's 33 feet. 66 feet, 22 yards, and the link was 7.92 inches. Why do we make it so difficult in the UK? 7.92 inches. But there was 100 links in the chain, 10 chains to a furlong, and 80 chains to a mile. So surveyors, I mean, you could set out with the theodolites. They was expensive bit of equipment though. But most of it's done with chains, and the surveyor would come along and have his boy, who was called a chain boy, doing the longer measurements. Yeah, 33-foot tape, 66-foot tape. Other chisels they would have, they definitely have cold chisels just for chopping out bricks. Remember, it was mostly lime mould, it didn't need to be hard. And a plug-in chisel. Lines and pins. That was called a knot of line, and it's hemp line. You can't really get it now. I got this from a specialist place. It's organic hemp, but it's hard to get. And if you look at these pins, how broad they are, they're not like the ones we use nowadays. The reason why, you was pushing these into wet mortar, so them ones we use now, they're quite thin and they're heavy, I think, and they tend to drop out. Where this has got more surface area, you know, you slide it in the perp joint, it's going to stay there. That's the reason for them. Fuck knows how old they are. They're old. And ends on them. Right, this hemp line, it used to get trench rot quite badly. Never lasted that long, it rotted. What we used to do, we used to undo it. You know, you've got a garden there, the washing line there. String it out like that. Tighten it up, and a block of wax. And I've done it because we was using this line when I first started. And run the block of wax along it to waterproof it, and that would lengthen, give it a bit of life. So they say. Bat's gauge. I'll knock this up quickly. Cutting bricks. So what you do, you'd put that on your brick. That's half a brick. That's your 3/4 brick. and that's your closure. You didn't cut many 3/4 in the UK, because you know the 9-inch work was all Flemish or English bond, and we started off with header and the closer, and 3/4 were only used on broken bond, so they're never the same size. You know, they're two 3/4 or 3/4 to fit to suit the bond. I mean, it should be 6 inches, shouldn't it? But in old money, but it's, you know, you put it anyway. So you got half, 3/4 and a closure, and it saves you wearing your tape out and all that. Put that in your bag. It's what you call a dog, and that's proper original dog. They may keep them in their toolbox, some wouldn't, some wouldn't. They're for raking out existing mortar, old mortar, but probably bricklayers, a lot of bricklayers wouldn't carry that, more the pointers would, but I'll put it in there just in case. Right. All the work what was done up to World War II, the 9-inch work in 9-inch solid, was all raked out and repointed in the London area, generally in weatherstruck and cut pointing. So the pointers come along later and done the pointing, but bricklayers would, you know, if you was doing a little extension or something like that, you know, the builder might expect you to do the weather pointing rather than bring pointers in. So all bricklayers would have been skilled in weatherstruck pointing, but on the bigger work it's a different trade, like it is in Europe now. There were other forms of pointing, but weatherstruck, certainly in London, was the most popular one. So, you know, you'd have a homemade hook like that, possibly small dotting trowel for the perps, and bigger trowel for the beds. Pointers use a different method. I'll explain quickly in a little while, but this is what most bricklayers would use. Right, what I can't find out is what they used for raking out. I can't find any particular tool. Maybe there's a bit of wood with a nail in or something, but there's a hell of a lot of raking out being done every job, you know, and I can't find a specific tool they used. In Europe, and this is what I use now, that's a finger trowel, or in America they call it slicker. It's worn right down, but if you can see, that's what I use for raking out. But I don't know what they used. I know we were still raking work out after World War II. It wasn't all being jointed up, and I know bricklayers use these, but this is after war. These old fishtail ties, the wall ties, they never had them before World War II, really. So I don't know what they used, but that's all the old boys I work with, that's all they use. They just raked out with that. So we never really had a specific tool for raking out, which I find quite strange, really. So jointing up, I've chucked these in. These are tuck pointers. Most bricklayers would be using them. It was a specialist job, and specialist pointers were coming in. It wasn't really that popular in you know, 1930s onwards. It's still done now on restoration work, but it wasn't a big thing. I was reading a book. It came out in 1760 by a surveyor. It's an interesting book. I can't remember what it's called now. And they were saying that all the face work then, and the bricklayer had done it all, was to build the bricks and to tuck point it after. They did the lot. And there was an interesting thing there, what they was expected to do in a day. On the rough work, they worked one-on-one. Well, that's how it was gauged anyway when they priced it. And it was one bricklayer and one labourer. Had to lay 1,000 bricks a day. You know, it's probably a bit easier on solid 9-inch work, English bond and that, but I don't care what you say, 1,000 bricks, still 1,000 bricks every day. And on the face work, that is one-on-one, they expected 500. So I imagine then quantities, you know, carried on in the next century. That's what they did. Right, finger trowels. Americans call them slickers. I never saw these till I went to Europe in the 70s. We didn't have them in the UK. No one used them apart from the big long ones, what the pointers made themselves, homemade ones, but they used them for pointing. I mean, we use them for everything now, don't we? Tucking in toothings and you know, all sorts. They're a handy little tool. And I didn't think they was ever. We had them in the UK, but I've come across one. So they were there. I've never seen them in any pictures, any books of Bricklayers Tools and that. But, there you go. That's the finger trowel, and you can just about read it. I can't see the maker's name, but it does say made in England. I can see the made in England bit, and it looks like it could say London, but I couldn't be 100% sure. But it's old. It's definitely old, because you know it's pitted. So they were about. Go back to the weather-struck pointing. You know, if the Ritter's going to do it, they'd have to have one of these. It's just a Frenchman, which is used for cutting it, and a straight edge. This is just my small one. I've had to bodge it because it fell apart, but that'd be 2 bits of wood there. And basically, what it does, it goes against the wall like that. Then you cut it off, and it's like this. You use this chamfered edge, so only droppings drop down and through that gap and into the wall, below the wall. So yeah, they may well have had them, or the builder would have had some. Gauging trowel, they may well have one of these as well. It's a WHS, an old one, and different types and shapes of small trowels for manholes, benching manholes and that, you know, just to get in the tight corners and do it. Old trowels that are worn down, you know, they'd keep them. Might keep a square for your arches, setting out your arches, and a bevel for your arches. New dog. That's next door because there's one here. I thought we'd go out. Yeah, and the other thing, they'd have is a set of dividers, which I've got and I can't find them. They're in the van somewhere. Set of dividers for setting out your brick gauge around your arch. Just sort of things that you know they'll probably have. I'm getting there. Right. After World War II, when we get into the cavity work and the sand and cement, the raking out and pointing afterwards went out the window, and we started jointing up as we went, and it was called bucket handle, basically because that's what they used as a bucket handle, taken off from a bucket and reversed. That's the original one. Yeah, most of the work was done like that. There's another one there, factory made one. That's what we were given at college. I don't know when they come out. That's probably more 70s actually, 60s, 70s, but yeah, you get the idea. These bits of hose, and I've never liked them, but what happened was, and they, you know, it was happening in the 50s obviously, because we had a lot of reclaimed bricks from what happened in World War II, what the Germans done to us, and we returned the favour as well, unfortunately, didn't we? There's a lot of damaged buildings, and people started building extensions and building stuff in the second-hand stocks, but instead of not raking them out and repointing them, they just hose them in with this. I never liked it. I didn't think it looked good at all, but it was very popular for a while. I suppose people still do it now, but you can see where it's worn out. I mean, I found that in an old toolbox, very old. Yeah, I didn't like that method. There you go. Right. Levelling and plumbing. Stop that. I'll just go back to the trowels, so I wrote this down. What a trowel cost. I found this bit of information. 1963, a trowel would cost you 30 shillings, which is £1.50. and the average wage for a bricklayer in 1963, according to the records I could find, was £20 a week. I've done a quick top and it worked out that trowels were a bit more expensive to what bricklayers earned to what they are now, about a third more. But blimey, they lasted a lot longer though, didn't they? I mean, then WHS and the Sheffield Steel were twice as long as the Marshalltown, maybe more. Yeah, right. Plumbing and levelling work. Well, the spirit level was invented in 1661, so it's been about a long time. But it's unreliable, isn't it? It's unreliable now. I mean, I use a Stabila now, and I think every one I bought after a month it's gone out. You just get used to it, don't you? You know your own level. So, plumb bob. That's what was used. I'll show you how this. I can build a corner with this. Plumb corner. I'll build a whole corner, and I'll show you how. If you see that plumb bob there, what are they called plumb bobs? I'll tell you why they're called plumb bobs. Because they were made from lead, even though this one isn't. And the Latin word for lead is plumbo, plumb, and that's why plumber is called a plumber, because plumbers work with lead pipes originally. So that comes from. So that was called a plumb because it was made from lead. And I don't know, I think maybe they called a plumb bob because the bit of string was on a bobbin like this, but that may not be true. It's just something I thought. Plumb bob. Right, this bobbin and this bit of wood here, this bit of wood here is half the size of the whole plumb bob, right? So it's that thickness. So if this could be embarrassing to actually build this corner. If I put this bit of wood on here like that, that plumb bob should be a fag paper away from the wall, and it is. Do you get that? Half the thickness. So I can start at the bottom, you know, lay 2 course and put that on there like that. You see that, smooth that up, and plumb our corner up. You can go right way up here, put that there. You might not be able to see that, I don't know. See how good I am. Happy medium, that's there. That's pretty good. Yeah, but that was more dump checking work. They didn't actually do it like that. They do them in the subcontinent and in India, places like that. They still build like this. What they used was one of these. That's plumb bob level. Now, this is built. This was made by oh God, who was it again? It's Raybone and Sons. John Raybone and Sons, and that company started I think around about 1760, so this could be that old, but these were used, you know, I've seen pictures in books in the 40s, 50s and 60s. They were still being used then. Now what it consists of is it's a plumb bob with the plumb bob there on the line. It's also got a plumb bubble and a level bubble. Right, and there's another type as well, where it's got no bubbles on it at all. It's just a piece of wood. Plumb bob comes down here, and this is cut out down there, and then there's a mark. You know, there's this you might know if you can see that. There's a mark being cut all the way through there. Then there would be a mark at the bottom. When I was at college, we had to build a corner using one of them, only about 12 course, just as an exercise, just, you know, just to show us how it was done in the old days. It was the old days to me then. That was in the 70s. So that goes against the wall like that. then the plumb bob hangs down. Follow that mark, and if you've got a mark there, follow that, and that's how it's plumb. And that bubble, and I don't know how old this is, like I say, that bubble is spot on. It is bang on the plumb, it really is. I can't check the level because the marks have run out, you can't see them, but they're worn out. Yeah, so that's what they used. I think, and I don't know, I'm just guessing this, that they wouldn't have used this plumb bob all the time. They'd be using the plumb bubble, and then maybe once a week or something put the plumb bob on it just to check your level. Now let's get that off. The bubbles, I don't know how this one works actually, because it's not something I'm familiar with, but there's a brass plug there, so obviously that has to be removed if you wanted to change the bubble, but the bubble's not gone out, which I find amazing. But how it was done on a lot of levels, you had the jumbo was one, mate. If the level was out, they were glass, you just smash them out with a screwdriver and hammer or something. You can buy them, you can buy these bubbles, and every site would have fibrous plasterers working there, so they were set in a bit of casting plaster. You put your casting plaster in there, which is plaster of Paris, put your bubble in there, and you put it up against the wall what you knew was plumbed, and alter it until it was right, and the plaster goes off in 5 minutes, and that's your bubble set. Same with the plumb. But yeah, this is really an early version. And then these came out, and like I say, the 3 foot and 4 foot. This is quite modern, 50s one. It can be altered, but they were wood. And all these bubbles are out, and that one isn't. Says it all, doesn't it? Last but not least, boat level. We weren't allowed to use these at college. Our tutors are very old school, nice blokes, but they was old school and strict. And one kid did bring one in. He nearly got sent home, so don't ever bring that in again. Bricklayers don't use boat levels, they're for scaffolders. You know, if you want to plumb up soldier courses, you use your 4 foot level, and that's what I always did really. I don't really use a boat level. They're called pocket levels, and this one's made of Bakelite, so that could be pre-war, I don't know. So there you go, that's a little insight into how things were done in those days. You know, life was different then, wasn't it? So bricklayers worked for builders generally. Bricklayers didn't have cars, very few had cars. You went to work on a bus, a bicycle. If you were a bit rich, you might have a scooter or a motorbike, you know, so you only had that kit bag. You weren't going to carry a load of profiles and stuff about with you, were you? And profiles were used. So yeah, it's getting cold again, isn't it? Cold this week and then rain next week. Well, I'm having my stitches out of my eye, for those who don't know. I had some surgery on my eye tomorrow, and then Friday I'm going to Tenerife for 10 days. I've had enough of this. I need a bit of sun on me back. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you all later.